Ronna Mcdaniel, the widespread banking problems underscore Biden's utter incompetence. Last week, America experienced the second and third largest bankruptcies in our nation's history. Of course, you wouldn't know it from Joe Biden's demeanor. He took the weekend off. Unfortunately, Americans are used to Biden falling asleep at the wheel every time a new crisis erupts on his watch. But everyone should pay attention to what's happening. After years of failed policies, catastrophic mismanagement, and complete disregard for Biden, our economy is in seriously troubled waters. Americans are paying the price. Deposits grew catastrophically and collapsed on March 10, sending shockwaves throughout the financial sector. In some situations, the last time such a large bank failure occurred was in 2008 at the start of the Great Recession. Just days later, Signature Bank, another major financial institution, collapsed after Silicon Valley Bank because fearful customers abandoned too many, too quickly. Markets and investors around the world are now on edge as our economy enters this unknown and uncertain territory. Biden has already presided over disaster after disaster. He handed Afghanistan over to the Taliban, creating unbridled chaos and losing billions of dollars in military equipment, and worst of all, directly causing the death of 13 American heroes. He destroyed our southern border, allowing millions of illegal immigrants and hundreds of millions of lethal doses of fentanyl to flood the country. Inflation has been at or above 5% for almost 2 years. Wage growth has repeatedly wiped out inflation, and spending on basic necessities has skyrocketed. It is important to note that inflation, perhaps a failure of Biden's tenure, was a result of his failed policies and actually contributed to the current banking disaster. When Biden first took office, he imposed $1.9 trillion in wasteful spending that the American economy simply didn't need, and couldn't afford. Liberal economist after liberal economist, including prominent figures who served in the Obama-Biden administration, have shown that this spending bill is the main cause of our inflation. Continued inflation has forced the Federal Reserve to raise interest rates, putting more pressure on banks and drawing a clear line between Biden's leftist policies and the current banking meltdown. Take a step back. The economy has collapsed since Biden took office, and now we are witnessing America's biggest bank failure in a decade. If the debt is going to stop before Biden, he owes the American people a real explanation of the problems that have emerged over the clock. Instead, he only offered a cynical blame game. Biden absurdly blamed Republicans for the crisis. News: the Democrats ran the White House and Congress for 2 years in a row, and the Republicans just flipped the House. Democrats should not pretend that they are not responsible for what happens when they are in power. Also, don't forget that the administration cannot name any specific rules that should be changed to prevent such disasters. They are seriously out of control and seem to have no plans to get us out of this mess. Biden, however, was clear on one point. More than a month ago, when a train derailed and spewed toxic chemicals into the air in a small-town part of Ohio that Democrats might call airport country, Biden couldn't have cared less. He barely intervened in the disaster and refused to visit the scene. But when the wealthy people of the Bank of California needed help, he took action. When he's not on vacation, Biden's priorities are extraordinary. This latest episode of failure only underscores why we need to kick him out of the White House in 2024.